It's a Gundam!
Draco here, and welcome to It's a GunPla, the show where I build GunPla, which is a reductive title intro now that I think about it. Regardless, so today we're doing Master Grade Gundam Virtue. So, first up, I'd like to say I'm glad to be back making content. Like I said last year, I was not doing so hot and had to cut out unnecessary expenses. And then after Christmas, some stuff happened, and I'm back.
Take that, depression!
So anyway, so first up, for like any of the Master Grade 00 Gundams, first thing we're going to do is we're going to build the, what do they call it, the GN reactor, or the solar power reactor, whatever it is. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I love the mech designs in Gundam 00, minus a few quibbles, like, why is Exia's beam sabers on the back of its shoulders, where literally it has to have both arms in position properly to draw? You know, stuff like that kind of bugs me, but for the most part, most of the mech designs are solid. Now, the lore of the show, on the other hand, is where you lose me, because, in my opinion, Gundam 00, basically these solar reactors are basically magic. I mean, the GN particles they produce do everything. I mean, they block communications, they facilitate communications, they apparently stabilize energy beams for weapons. They apparently, spoilers, in this rant, they apparently turn humans into androgynous psychics that can communicate with aliens made out of living metal. Apparently they can help you regrow limbs. You can, GN particles can be used. The red ones cause cancer. The green ones can cure cancer. It's kind of ridiculous, everything that GN particles do. And in all honesty, if they'd have just made it magic, I would probably have less of an issue with it. Now, right here, I've got an LED that I borrowed from one of my other 00 kits just for Virtue. Now, the batteries in it are weak. I try it, and eventually they can't put out enough light to be any use. So unfortunately, that's a bust, but eventually I'll put batteries in it. But it is one of the things that's really cool that you can put in the LEDs to make the chests light up like they did in the anime, regardless of my issues with some of the lore and stuff. I have other issues because I have this weird thing where it's like, am I the only person who sees all the problems with Gundam 00? Like, people talk about it like it's one of the best Gundam series ever, but it just floors me. It's like, I can't be the only one seeing the problems with it. And since this is a model build and you don't need me narrating it, I'll probably talk about it. And hopefully I get somebody annoyed enough to engage with me and get some engagement growth. That's a joke. I'm going to make the videos regardless of engagement until this isn't fun anymore. Or if it's like the Not Lego Train and it gets literally 0 views, and then maybe I'll bail on it, but that's besides the point. So as you can see, the LED's glowing. On camera it looks significantly brighter than it does in person. Cool gimmick, but just doesn't work due to the batteries being dead. I was kind of hoping for a little more gimmick-wise with Virtue, but it occurs to me at this size that it'd probably be very difficult. And I just noticed that there's some stress marks on this from me taking it apart and put it back together again. I will fix those later with a heat gun or a hair dryer, depending on what I feel like getting out. So moving on, now we're going to move on to the body. Which, if you build GunPla and have never built a 00 kit, it is very unique due to the unusual approach the mecha designs took. Is Gundam 00, they took the beefy, kind of chunky designs you're used to, and they went the opposite. The Gundams, they're very thin, and I've heard people describe it as anorexic, which leads to that minimalistic design. Now, right here, starting at this point, there is a clear piece that goes in the chest, and that clear piece you put a label over it. Now the label has the 00 thing is all of them have that clear piece in the chest with the Gundam's name on it. Now this one is unique, and you get two. One for Virtue and one for Nadley, which is Virtue after blowing off its armor. Since I don't have a lot of love for Nadley, I went with Virtue. It's a good excuse, honestly, to buy a standalone Nadley, because I think they announced they were going to do a standalone Nadley, but I could be wrong. Now I'm just trying to get the camera to focus on the tiny text on the sticker, but as you can see, the camera's not cooperating, so we'll have to give up on that. And now it's just not wanting to cooperate in general. So eventually I will fix the focus, don't worry. Camera's being weird, but of course it is, because why is it? Because I'm filming a video. Okay, and fixed. And you can actually see the text. You can't really make it out, but then I put that green lens over it and it just goes. It's one of the oddities of this set. Another unique thing is these Tetron parts. As you can see, they reflect the light, and they have that rainbow iridescence to them. Now, in the lore of the show, these are apparently GN cables, and apparently part of how they move the GN particles through the mobile suit, because they have like condensers to store the particles in various parts of the suit, so that they can use them for propulsion or weapons fire. That was another thing that GN particles do, is somehow they can be used for propulsion. And like I said, that's one of the issues I take with the lore of Gundam 00. It's just the GN particles literally do anything the plot necessitates them to. Later in the series, the main character, Setsuna, can apparently break himself and the 00 Gundam down into a mass of GN particles and then reassemble somewhere else. Now I just stuck the pilot into the cockpit seat. This model came with 3 pilot figures, the sitting one for the cockpit, a standing Tierra Arde, and a Tierra Arde and drag. I never do anything with the little standing pilots, so I usually don't even cut them out. And now, as we're going, some of the instructions onto this are not super clear, but like that one right there, eventually I comprehended what it's telling me. And normally I'm used to the pilot being down low, which is why my brain is just not wanting to uh, arrange this properly. But yeah, Tierra Arde, if I remember right, the cockpit hatch is under the neck of Virtue/Nadley. Which to me sounds like a terrible idea because, given the nature of battle, a stray hit or damage to the head, in theory, would get him stuck in the cockpit for a while. But anyway, that's me overthinking anime. And I think we'll just cut to where I install this. And I'm incorrect. The canopy is in the stomach like normal. Don't know what was going on with my brain there, but here we are. So I'm also using my tweezers to make sure the Tetron stickers or the Tetron pieces are locked in properly. But you don't want to be too rough on them because, you don't want to crease them or anything. But I recently actually was talking to somebody about the show, and I had this weird revelation where, normally I don't throw these words around too much because I think in today's society people throw them around till they become meaningless. But one of the issues I took with the narrative of this show is that it's kind of racist. Because I was thinking about it, your main character, Setsuna F. Seiei, his real name is like Soren Ibrahim or something. He was an Islamic child terrorist who lost his faith and then joined Celestial Being, becoming a atheist terrorist. And I'm not being reductive or humorous about that. That's his character in the show. And like I said, that's heavily stereotyping, and I actually think you could make the argument that is a racist depiction, because he's a Middle Eastern terrorist who quit being a terrorist to be a terrorist. Because is there any context where that isn't just ugh? But anyway, but yeah, that and then character-wise with Setsuna, I take a big issue because they tried to recreate Hiro Yui from Gundam Wing, the mostly silent protagonist, and they failed to do it. The reason Hiro works in Gundam Wing so well is even though he doesn't speak a lot, his character changes. Throughout the series, you see where he's, where in the beginning he attempts to commit suicide because his Gundam crashed into the ocean. And then you see him return back to being the soldier, and his relationship with Relina and the world around him changes him until he's tricked into the... And I guess this should get a spoiler warning, but as old as Gundam Wing is there probably aren't that many spoilers floating around. And he destroys the Earth, the Earth Sphere Alliance Command, so that Oz can take over. And so finding out what he did, he goes on a thing trying to get the family members of the Earth Alliance leader to shoot him and kill him in lieu of committing suicide. And then that transitions to where they go to space, and then they come back to Earth, and on Earth... Well, they went to space and he pretended to be an Oz soldier. or no, that was Troa. He got caught and was forced to during all the Wing Zero nonsense. And then leaving behind Wing Zero thinking they destroyed it, ends up becoming the guardian of the Sanct Kingdom, using the Wing Gundam until he gets the Gundam Epion, and then and so on. But he goes through a number of shifts. But in Gundam 00, Setsuna doesn't go through this. It's just the I am the Gundam. Whereas everyone around him actually gets, for the most part, except for Thierry Arde, the pilot of Virtue, ironically, everyone gets a unique character arc. Because there was a good arc where the pilot of the Dynamis, he joined Celestial Being because his family died in a terrorist attack carried out by Setsuna FCA's mentor, in a great moment of growth from him where he realizes Setsuna didn't do it, he didn't do anything wrong, and so they move on. And that's the kind of stuff that can make these protagonists work. But for Setsuna, nothing changes. His personality doesn't change. It's just the same thing over and over again. And this is my opinion, because Gundam 00, the first season, had two protagonists. They had Setsuna and Saji Crossroad, who I guess Saji is supposed to be your grounding device for for the average person in the world. But had they combined the two of them together, where Setsuna and Saji, Setsuna, basically the whole thing, because you could have told Saji's entire story, minus some changes to his relationship with Luis, and by just having Setsuna, his cover on Earth, he is Saji. It would have actually added tension to everything. It would have given his relationship with Luis meaning, instead of just honestly being pointless for a meaningless payoff in the second season where she recognizes him and realizes he's a celestial being agent. But anyhow, I can keep ranting about this. It's actually fun. Now, even though I love the design of Virtue, I do take... Oops. I just hit my desk with my knee. Didn't hurt me, but the desk made some ominous sounds. But, like, Virtue, for example, I love Virtue's design, except for one thing. It's a heavy bombardment unit. His primary weapon is a heavy bazooka. His secondary weapons are a pair of two sets of fire-linked cannons that they fire at the same time. And then he has two beam sabers. And I believe the intent is he also has a shield generator. And I assume the intent is that after firing and needing to recharge, that he can just hide in his shield. But if he burned a bunch of GN particles firing, how is he maintaining the shield? And his design's Virtue is very clunky as opposed to Nadley, so melee combat, while Nadley is much more proficient at it, Virtue is not. But then again, the only design I really don't take any issue with is Dynamis. His Dynamis, he has sniper rifle and two pistols, and then he has missile launchers in his crotch armor, his knees, and he has optional shield that an optional cloak-like shielding that goes over his shoulders. And that actually works. Exia's design, other than the beam sabers on the back of his shoulder, also works very well. The gun sword combo, and then he also has 2 beam sabers, 2 beam daggers, and then a long sword and a short sword. All that actually works very well. Now be careful with those yellow parts, those weird antennas on the shoulders. I'm not exactly sure what they do lore-wise. I assume maybe they're what let the Gundams communicate, even though GN particles apparently block normal communication transmissions. So anyhow, we're getting down to the end here. We got a little bit left, and Natalie, has one of the more unique things. Now, the cockpit hatch is black, and other than those yellow antennas, the cockpit hatch, and those yellow vents on his chest, Natalie has no colors. And when talking about it with my wife, she pointed out that it looks very naked. And given its role in the show, that is extremely accurate, I think, to what Natalie is supposed to look like. Because it's rare you see an all-white unit in Gundam. Because even Shin Matsunaga, the White Wolf of Solomon, his Zaku had a lot of gray, or not a lot, but it had gray and black on it to offset all the white. And the other thing about Natalie is it has this hair-like material that are apparently cables that go into Virtue's armor to allow him to control Virtue. And so we can say with all certainty this Gundam has the worst case of neck beard I've ever seen. So the last thing to do is put in the GN reactor. In this case, like you said, I was trying to get my LED to work. It wouldn't, so I'm just going to put the dummy one in until I get batteries into my new batteries and get the other one working. And so I'm just double checking how this is supposed to fit in there, and basically it doesn't really clip in. You just kind of drop it in there, which is another thing. I'm like, so what keeps that thing from bouncing around while this thing's engaged in combat? So I'm just going to clip that back together, and oh well on the LED. Thanks for watching.